Items are what make Skyblock what it is today. According to the Hypixel Skyblock wiki, there are over 750 items in the game. This means that there's tons of items that have either been forgotten about or gone unheard of. In today's video, I'll be taking a closer look at some items which you've probably never seen or even heard of, and explain why they've lost their purpose over the years. If you enjoyed the video, consider leaving a like and subscribing. I'd really appreciate it, and it helps the channel out a lot. We recently passed 4,000 subscribers, which is a massive milestone for me, so thank you guys a ton. I'll split up the video into 3 segments: weapons, blocks, and miscellaneous. Let's start with weapons. First of all, the flaming sword. This iron sword has a 3% chance to be dropped by a zombie pigman in the blazing fortress. It provides okay stats for early game players and ignites enemies for 3 seconds upon damaging them. Now you may be thinking, that's so useless because Fire Aspect 1 does the exact same thing. Well, I'm gonna be honest, you're completely right. The funny thing is that the mobs in the Blazing Fortress are immune to fire damage, so there's literally no point using the sword for its ability on the island that it's obtained on. Next up is a fancy sword, a sword that I wasted 60 million coins on. Yeah, let me explain. So basically the fancy sword's stats are horrendous, providing only plus 20 damage and no strength. This sword is very strange because when bought, it comes with 4 enchantments which are impossible to remove. These are First Strike 1, Scavenger 1, Sharpness 2, and Vampirism 1. Now you've probably heard of the ultimate enchant One for All. It removes all other enchants and boosts the weapon's damage by 210%. The weird thing is that One for All can actually be applied to the fancy sword without removing the default enchants. Now you probably don't believe me, so I went ahead and applied the 16 million coin ultimate enchant to the 80 coin sword. I've got to say that this is one of the worst financial decisions of my Skyblock career, but hey, I proved it's true and now I'm bankrupt. Please subscribe so I can get at least a little bit of my sanity back. Not only did I waste 16 million coins, when I tried to remove the existing enchants using an enchantment table, I lost XP and they still weren't taken from the sword. Honestly don't know what went through the admin's mind when creating this sword, but it definitely needs a rework. This next item is one of the strangest I've seen. The Prismarine Blade is a sword that looks exactly like a Prismarine shard that deals plus 200% damage while the user is in water. Sounds OP, right? Well, it would be if it actually had decent stats, which it doesn't. The Hypixel Skyblock wiki even recommends that you don't use this weapon as its early game stats are quite bad. You'll receive plus 50 damage and plus 25 strength. Unless your dream is to kill fish for a living, I can't imagine a time when you'd use the Prismarine Blade, which is why it has been forgotten. Onto the Tactician sword. I can imagine a lot of OG players watching this video are getting flashbacks and nostalgia of the early days of Skyblock. This wooden sword lost all popularity after the aspect of the dragons dropped in price. For the time, it was surprisingly good, as for every combat collection you had above level 7, up to 10 collections, you'd receive an additional plus 15 damage on the sword. Because it is a wooden sword, the wood singularity can be applied to it, adding plus 100 strength and upgrading its rarity. As the Tactician sword has been completely outclassed by popular, better items, the sword faded out of existence. No offense Tactician sword users, but everyone knows that the aspect of the Jerry was the superior wooden sword. The last of the weapons is the Slime Bow. This bow costs around 2 million coins to craft and deals 5 times more damage to magma cubes and slimes. The bow might remind you of the magma bow, which has completely outclassed the Slime Bow. The reason why it has outclassed it is because the magma bow deals 2 times more damage to every mob. It's not restricted to slimes and magma cubes. The multiplications of stats will require 1 slime ball per shot from the slime bow and 1 magma cube per shot for the magma bow. Something that I found really interesting though was that the slime bow could actually be super useful for the upcoming nether revamp. If it deals plus 500 damage and plus 250 crit damage to magma cubes, it could be the new meta for any new magma cube mobs. That's also not including extra stats like reforges and hot potato books. If you haven't already, keep an eye out for investing opportunities before the Nether update releases because you can make quite a lot of money. Now onto the forgotten or unheard of blocks. I'll start off with the silence block. Out of the items I've gone over, here's one that actually has quite a good use. The silence block mutes all mobs when placed on a private island. Unfortunately, not all Enderman and Blaze sounds are muted, but it's quite good for the cheap price you can get it for. As most players own a repelling candle, an item that stops mobs from naturally spawning on your island, they won't need to use this silence block. That is, unless you have minions that spawn mobs. I don't think you'd fully appreciate the item if you didn't have ghast minions because they always sound so depressed. Speaking of ghast minions, as you know, ghasts shoot fireballs which can actually explode holes in your private island. Obviously you wouldn't want this to happen, that is, unless you're some sort of psychopath. The Hypixel Skyblock admins have brought an item from Bed Wars into Skyblock, just slightly changing the name and use. Hard Glass provides extremely high blast resistance and is super useful for ghast farms. Unfortunately, it doesn't protect the blocks behind it, unlike the Bed Wars variant, Blastproof Glass. Strangely, Hard Glass drops when broken instead of vanishing like vanilla Minecraft glass. Anyway, ghast farms aren't that relevant anymore, but may become more of a demand when the Nether update comes out. This is why Hard Glass hasn't been talked about much in the recent months of Skyblock. Another very odd implementation to Skyblock is the stone platform. Crafted with 1 egg surrounded by 64 stone bricks, this item creates an 8x8 block platform made from stone bricks, 10 blocks away from where the player threw it. The reason why you've probably never heard of this item is because it barely has any uses. I did think of one though. Say if you're in the middle of nowhere on your island and around you is only air. If you throw the platform, there'll now be something you can build off of. Next up is miscellaneous items. I'll start off with the magical milk bucket. You've probably heard of the magical water or lava buckets, but I bet you haven't heard of the magical milk bucket. What magical buckets do is restore the liquid that is inside them indefinitely. The magic milk bucket used to provide stats like 100 health and 70 defense per bucket, but the effects stacked. This made the item quite overpowered and they were soon nerfed into the ground, providing no additional stat buffs. Now, I actually wasted another 700,000 coins just for this video because I already made one terrible financial decision, so why not make another one, right? Well, anyway, if you drink the magical milk bucket, it'll act as a vanilla Minecraft bucket and remove all of your active effects. This includes any that you received from drinking a god potion. So I gave it a go, and sure enough, the Hypixel Skyblock wiki did not fool me. Although I did fool myself. Anyway, don't drink the bucket because it's not fun wiping away your god potion. Have you ever seen any cool Minecraft builds in Skyblock and wonder how they get the 6-sided wood logs? There's actually an item that the admins added which does exactly this. It's called the Sculptor's Axe and it's perfect for anyone who loves building on their private island. It comes at a very cheap cost that only requires birch collection 4, which isn't very high. If you'd like to change it back to the original wood, destroy the log and replace it. It's probably not an item that you'd use regularly, but something cool to know if you like building. Now, finally, the enchantment Rainbow 1. Although technically this isn't an item, I wanted to add it in because it is quite random, like literally. You can apply the enchantment to a set of shears and its ability is to randomize the color of the wool in which is sheared from the sheep. If you really wanted to get some colored wool, I'd suggest going to the builder and buying some white wool then dyeing it. It's a lot more efficient and you won't have to deal with multiple stacks of colored wool when harvesting wool. Overall, so many items have snuck their way into Skyblock without being noticed or talked about. Some of them actually have some cool perks, but most of them honestly are quite useless, which is why they've been forgotten. That's all for today's video. If you enjoyed, consider leaving a like and subscribing. Don't forget to join my Discord. Thanks for watching, see ya!